Good evening and welcome to this holiday season set for Ideas at Work and Beyond. We're going with the Christmas tie. We're going with the hat, which my crack staff has told me I shouldn't wear because it belittles me if I'm wearing a Santa Claus hat. So,
I got my red blazer on.
You got your red blazer on, and Al Robinson did not get the memo on the whole Christmas theme.
I did Kwanzaa, man.
You Kwanzaa, okay? You got a memo for Kwanzaa.
Cosby show.
Well, we're going Christmas here this week. Yeah, this is a set. We got a roaring fire right here. I'm feeling very Christmas.
Ready for Santa Claus?
Ready for Santa Claus to come down. We're all set. This week, of course, was dominated by two great events. One was the unraveling and demise of Tiger Woods' marriage. I don't know if we have that picture. This is apparently going to be the new Christmas photograph for the Woods family.
New York Post or
what's that?
New York Post today?
Yeah, it was on the New York Post, and it's been making the rounds on the internet as well. But I love Tiger Woods. He's a great golfer, and I wish him all the best. But I think he was having too good of a life. And there's some trouble in the Woods household, no matter how you look at it.
You think so?
Yeah, there we have I'm a cheetah. That would be Woods' wife attacks with a wedge. Frankly, from what I hear, she's got a pretty good swing. It's smooth, it's consistent, and she's got a lot of force behind it. If you've seen the Escalade in some of the pictures, you know. But we wish the Woods all the best. They have to sort some things out. And who of us can say that, personally, my wife took a wiffle ball bat to me once, but that was about 15 years ago. It actually, I don't know if you know that, but it's a reverse wiffle because it was a defensive wound thing.
Nice.
But we worked through those things, and now we're better able to communicate. So a wiffle ball bat is a lot better than I think that was.
They didn't even have Cadillac Escalade in those days.
They didn't. No, it was a long time ago, and we're really getting along better. The other thing, too, was there was a speech given by Barack Obama to West Point. And I think the guys that go to West Point, there's a little motivation there. They're not, I guess they're in tune with the political nuances of what's going on over in Afghanistan, but I didn't see when I watched that speech the cadets that were on camera. Some of them were, well, here we have one guy reading Kill Bin Laden. I think he may more accurately represent what they have in mind as far as what's going on in Afghanistan. And then also a number of the cadets were actually falling asleep. The speech basically talked about having a time frame for withdrawal, 18 months, and it's been roundly criticized, not just by the right. We're not just talking about Fox. We're talking about CBS News and some other commentators have said
MSNBC?
MSNBC. These are not bastions of conservative talk, but it seems as if Barack Obama didn't exactly win the day. He seemed a little uncomfortable there at West Point, and it's yet to be seen. I do give him credit for committing the troops, and it's a bit of a quagmire there in Afghanistan. Our hearts and minds and thoughts and prayers are with the men out on the front lines, and that's the two dominant things that we had to look at from this week: Tiger Woods and Barack Obama's speech at West Point. Okay, clear the table here. Tonight we want to talk about Connecticut politics. It's that, what were we talking earlier? What was the comedy routine? Who's on first? What's on second?
Abbott and Costello.
Abbott and Costello. It's almost like that. We have a governor mansion that's up. We have a U.S. Senate seat in Chris Dodd, which many would say there's a bit of blood in the water there, and so there's a lot of people going for that. And we have many congressional seats that, of course, are all going to be up in 2010, and we have got more Tom, Dick, and Harrys running for these offices. And tonight I've invited Matt Grimes to join us. Matt Grimes is our Connecticut political savant who knows everything about it. And, of course, Al Robinson, who's always here to give us his perspective as well. Matt, let's start with the governor's race. First of all, are you running for the governor of Connecticut?
I'm not.
You're not. Well, you're one of the few that isn't running.
We will not have a candidate from Brookfield this year.
You want to? Yeah, exactly. Okay, so what do we have? Who's running and who has a chance and who's just Whistling Dixie.
It's very interesting. I mean, I would say that in most political circles, I mean, there was rumblings that the Governor Rowe was going to retire, but I think it was generally accepted that she was going to run again, and everybody kind of waited for her to make a move. Mm-hmm. You've got, obviously, her Lieutenant Governor, Mike Fedeli, who had a big announcement yesterday, and I don't know how he did it, but he had a letter in every registered Republican's mailbox yesterday afternoon, the day he announced. Yeah. Very, very well organized.
It looked a little bit like this. I don't know if we can get a shot of it.
Every registered Republican in Connecticut, I believe, or anybody that had a Republican in Connecticut in their household got one.
That's right. Here's mine. This is actually to my wife, Carolyn, but go ahead. Every time I open one of these, there's always an envelope in it attached.
So Mike served for 10 years as a state rep from Stamford prior to...
I think we have a picture of him, too.
We do? Okay. Kind of the American dream. It came here when he was 3 or 4 years old from Italy with his family. Built his way up his own business, the Pinnacle Group, here in Stamford, which has about 100 jobs here in Connecticut. As I said, 10 years in the State House, and then 4 years in the private sector, and then 4 years as Lieutenant Governor, which was expanded by Governor Rowland from a part-time job to a full-time job with double the salary while Governor Rowe was Lieutenant Governor. Then you also have Larry Cafaro, who's the House Minority Leader from this great city of Norwalk. We got a shot of him. Another Italian-American. Very dynamic debater, as best you can do when you only have 32% of the seats in the House.
Right.
A lot of time when you turn on Face the State, you see Larry speaking on the House floor on the minority side. Also in the Republican race, yet to enter any race at all, is John McKinney, who is the State Senate Minority Leader. He's from Newtown, Fairfield District. A lot of people were very surprised when he did not run for the 4th District for Congress. That was his father, Stuart McKinney's old seat before Chris Shays. But right now, also expected to enter the fray for governor.
Okay, so John McKinney is from where?
Fairfield.
From Fairfield, okay.
He represents Newtown and Easton and Monroe and that cadre of Eastern Fairfield County, I guess you could say.
Okay.
And I guess today we had an announcement, well, if you could call it an announcement, by Tom Foley, former ambassador to Ireland from the great city of Greenwich. I guess announced today that he was doing what he talked about last week, switching from...
Because you were at that announcement, right, Al? How did that go?
I wasn't at it, but I knew a lot of reporters and bloggers who were there. It was like...
Where was it? Where
Hartford Hilton.
Hartford Hilton, yeah, great place. And I
think we have a picture of Tom Foley, if we can put that up, too.
Not the former House Speaker, by the way.
Right, no, that's a different one.
I guess he took the podium, spoke for 2 or 3 minutes, said he was running, and wouldn't take anyone's question.
Wouldn't take any questions, and asked why he was running, or and he said he'll get back to you on that. So we'll see what's going on with that candidacy. I don't think it's going anywhere.
So that's your Republican field, and also the other rumored entrant into the Republican field, or considering it, is our own great mayor of the city of Danbury, Mark Boughton.
Mark Boughton, okay. Caller, you're on the air.
Is this Marty Heiser?
This is Marty Heiser.
This is Rob Merkel, an ex-congressman from the...
Rob Merkel. We have a picture of Rob Merkel. Yes, you're right. You're right on there. It's your banner on your website, Rob Merkel for Congress. Thank you very much for calling in.
Hey, my pleasure.
If I could just start my question with you. You played football for Notre Dame. How in the world can a Notre Dame storied program lose to UConn? Could you just answer that? Our viewing audience would want to know.
Coaching.
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 Poor coaching. All right, so how's the campaign going?
Outstanding. Outstanding. We're spreading the word. We're getting a lot of fans. This is a grassroots campaign because, as you're aware, Marty, people do not trust sitting politicians. They've been lied to. We've had tax and spend policies thrust on us at the state and the federal level.
Right.
So, the Tea Partiers, the Right Principles guys, they're coming behind me, and it's going very well.
Okay, so now, fundraising, if you had your fundraising report, are you lagging behind some of the other candidates that are running for this seat?
I am, and frankly, I think they should be a lot further ahead than they are, considering the amount of time they've been in politics. But if you look at what fundraising is really all about, it's about getting out the vote, and that's what the money is there for. Now, if I'm getting the vote without the money, I'm not as concerned about the money that they're raising now. I'm telling you, there's a movement in this country that is on fire, and it's alive and well in Fairfield County. So that's what we're banking on.
Okay, and do you think your primary, if you could call him the front runner, is Dan DiBasella?
In the money race, sure. I mean, Dan's a good guy. I've spoken to him many times. You know, he's been involved in state politics for 20 years, and he's got you know, most of the sitting legislature backing him, which, you know, I would expect him to do. But, you know, I think we're in a different time these days.
All right, well, I have Al Robinson here. He's the editor and founder of Hat City Blog, and he has a couple questions for you. And your good friend, Matt Grimes, he has one of your bumper stickers on the back of his car, actually, but he has a question as well. But we'll start with Al Robinson.
Yeah, sure. Let's go back to the cash on hand, because I think when it comes down to campaigns, money is
Can't hear you, Al.
when it comes down to campaigns, it's all about the money. So your last campaign finance statement, what's your cash on hand? How much money did you raise in the last reporting period?
Well, our last reporting period, we had about $28,000, and a lot of that was a loan from me to the campaign that didn't show up in the finance statement. But keep in mind, we didn't file the paperwork until early August, and then we had a baby. My wife had a baby, middle of August. So we really didn't get started until about mid-September.
I mean, what do you attribute that to? I mean, it would seem like, I mean, there's this kind of theory in politics that if you raise money, it's showing that you have some supporters behind you and so forth. Why do you think you've lagged behind in you know, this scale?
Well, if you think about it, the people that have been donating money forever in these campaigns are the politicos, the people that are the entrenched establishment. I mean, most people that I talk to that are at these rallies, that are coming to these meetings, have never been involved in politics before. They've never donated to a campaign. So they've got a little trepidation donating to anybody, let alone someone who hasn't held office before. And from their perspective, this is an organization effort where they're coming to the party, they're coming to my camp, and they're getting their people to show up at events. For them, it's about the vote, not the money.
Okay, Al?
Okay, one of the big things when you talk about campaigns is name recognition, name ID. You have yourself, and you had Mr. DiBasella, who is a state senator, so I would just assume just on that alone he has a little more of an ID. What are you going to be doing in terms... I'm sorry.
He's just saying that Dan DiBasella has much more name recognition for you, and how are you going to combat that?
And in terms of name ID, what are you doing to get your name out there? Are you meeting with the Republican town committees throughout your district? Are you meeting with voters? What are you going to do in terms of getting your name out there?
We're going to all the Republican town committees. We're going to local events. We're having meetings at local restaurants and bars. We're talking to churches and community groups. We are publishing. You know, our website is very active. Our Facebook page is very active. And it's interesting because everywhere I go, people tell me that they have not felt like they've been represented by the Republican Party for years, and that they don't want a rhino in office, and they don't want a moderate in office. They feel like they need a true conservative to step up to the plate, and they think I'm the guy.
Excuse me a second. Who are you calling a rhino?
Who am I calling a rhino?
That's Matt Grimes.
Who are you calling a rhino?
I'm calling people that are, you know, they're center-left. I would call those rhinos.
Okay, well, who are you referring to that they don't want to vote for that's a rhino?
Well, if you hear someone that's saying they're a fiscal conservative and a social moderate, the perspective of this community that I have talked to is that's not their value system. You've got real conservatives in Connecticut, both fiscally and socially, and they feel the Republican Party in the last 15 years has been trying to go Democrat light, and they've been anointing candidates instead of electing them. And that's why in the last 36 months we've lost 60 seats in the House, and we've lost the presidency, and the Republican Party was a bad word up until about 6 months ago.
All right, so you're going grassroots. You're going, hey, you want someone who isn't part of the establishment in Washington. You want someone who's an outside guy who's going to represent just you. That's kind of your message.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'm the only one that's run a small business. I've got capital markets experience, and I'm not beholden to anybody. I don't have big interest money behind me, so I don't have to kowtow out any special interests. I'm in there to make the tough decisions, to cut back the size of government, not to expand it, and to get out. I'm going in on a term limit pledge, and you know, I don't
What's
think
your
anybody
term
else
limit?
in the field who are professional politicians doing anything like that.
What's your term limit?
4 terms.
4 terms, right.
Okay.
Al's got the final word.
Now, I know a few things about conventions and stuff because I've followed them a few times. Now, I know that the Republican convention should be coming up maybe about 6 months or so. Have you had any...
May 21st and 22nd, I believe, in Hartford.
Now, do you have any confirmed delegates?
No one's confirmed at this point, but you know, and here's how the process is supposed to work. The RTCs typically do not come out and endorse, you know, until the convention. I've had a lot of people come up to me behind the scenes and say, "Look, we're in your corner. You're going to have our committee, or you're going to have, you know, a majority of it, but we can't come out publicly at this point." You know, it's kind of a wait-and-see game. And frankly, I don't need to get the whole convention. I'm not delusional. I don't think I'm going to convince the entire Republican Party.
Right.
But a 15% is all I need to primary, and I will get that. And once I have that, the people will speak at the primary election, and I'll be the candidate against Jim Himes.
Oh, that's new. So if you do not get the nomination, if you get the 15%, you are intending on primarying?
Well, with a 15% of the delegate votes, I'm entitled to a primary.
Right.
And my sense is, with all the contested races we have, both governor, Senate, as well, there will be a primary in the state one way or the other.
Okay.
So it's not like we're going to be holding up the 4th district to have our own primary. And 15% is all I need to qualify for it.
Rob, thank you very much for calling in. Really appreciate it.
Hey, my pleasure, guys.
Okay, take care.
Yeah, that was the most delusional outspeak I ever heard from a candidate. The man stands not a snowball's chance in hell of being elected to Congress. Dan DiBasella is going to be the nominee. He's got an opponent, and his name is Rob, but his last name isn't Merkel, it's Russo. There's only 2 serious candidates. He's not even going to get 15 delegates, let alone 15% of the delegates. Come on. Why do you give credibility to this?
It sounds to me like vaguely un-American for you to sit here in an overstuffed chair, you know, what, 8 months before to say that he doesn't have a snowball's chance in hell.
He doesn't.
Well, how do you know that? There's a lot of
Because money talks and bullshit walks.
Okay, I don't think you can swear on TV. Caller, are you there? Caller, are you there?
Oh, come on. You can yourself a win.
Caller, are you there? All right, see, you swore, and the guy hung up because he can't handle the swearing.
Lynn Taversack said that on the show.
Well, Lynn, that's another. This is a Republican show.
I think one of the interesting things that we heard there in the conversation that he intends to primary, and I think because on the Democratic side, you got Jim Himes, who's got a big war chest right now. He's gathering a lot of money, and you got to be somewhat careful when you start doing primaries because you get into a bloodbath, and that tends to hurt more than help your cause.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why I brought up the delegates, because, you know, again, I know a few things about conventions. You want to go out there and get those delegates right now, and you do have confirmed delegates, non-confirmed delegates, but you kind of get a sense of where you're at, like about now, with 6 months to go. You should know what you look like in terms of the convention, and if he gets 15% and pushes the primary, I don't think that would be a great thing.
Caller, you're there? It's the phone's not coming through.
Okay.
Let me ask you, because you bring up Jim Himes. Here's the consensus that I'm sensing, and you're more in tune with the Republican Party than we are. But the consensus that I see is the Republicans feel like 2010 is going to be a big year for them, both in Connecticut on the congressional level, with Senator Dodd. They think they're going to hold on to the governor's mansion. That's the consensus among Republicans. Are we delusional, or do you think that the Democratic Party is vulnerable this year?
I think with 11 months to go until an election, I think is very foolish. Could get a lot
worse for the Democrats.
Well, it could get a lot better. I think it'd be very foolish to start popping the champagne right now. And I think you got to be very careful about making predictions at this point.
Any midterm of a first-term president is going to pick up seats in the opposite party. 2002 was a unique year because it was in the middle of war right after 9/11. But whether it's Democrat or Republican, are the Republicans going to pick up seats in both houses of Congress? Yes. It's just a question of how much. I don't expect it to be in 1994 where there's a whole reshuffling of the deck and everything. They're going to pick up a lot of they're going to pick up a lot of gubernatorial seats. What will probably happen is where you'll see Republicans make gains is in the open seats. A lot of long-time Congress congressmen and senators and governors retiring. That's where the Republicans will make gains. There'll be a few incumbents knocked off. What people forget about 1994 is there were 9 Senate seats picked up that year by the Republicans. Only two Democratic incumbents lost. Wofford in Pennsylvania and Sasser in Tennessee. There were no, I mean, the fact that there's so many open seats, that's what's going to help the Republicans.
And you look at the New York 23, and that race that just went down.
That's a special election.
And it's a special election, but you got to look at, you know, you got like the right, and you got like a really, really, really fringe right that's very vocal, and you got some craziness going on in that party. You got to get under control.
But Al,
and you might have
1% turnout in a special election in a congressional district. You can't. It's apples and oranges to what's going to happen with the 60%.
I'm just saying again. You got a vocal side. People are trying to get there. Like Rob Merkel brought up the teabaggers, and I think like you start. You have those people as your base. You might have a problem with moderates. Something you got to think about.
He's not running against any moderates.
Well,
caller, are you there?
Go.
Caller, are you there? Okay. Well, we'll have to eventually go to a break, but you might want to have him call my cell phone number as well.
Oh no, not that. You gonna get that out again?
In any case, though, I mean, look at the Republicans around the country are trying to recruit the best experienced candidates possible that can win. I mean, DiBasella is a great candidate because he won in a swing district. He won in the swing district. Rob Russo would be a good candidate too.
Are you going to be a delegate to the Republican convention?
I expect so.
Are you going to vote for Dan DiBasella?
I'm not in that district.
Would you? I mean, as a candidate, are you going to vote for as a representative at the convention? Are you going to support Dan DiBasella?
I can't vote at that convention. I just told you.
Why are you going to the convention?
No, it's in the 4th district. I live in the 5th.
He's a 4th CD. He's in the Brookfield's 5th CD.
All right, but it sounds like you're very supportive of Dan DiBasella.
Yeah, and there is a second contender there. His name is Rob Russo. He was the state senator from Bridgeport. Very good candidate, very articulate, a little bit more moderate than Dan DiBasella is, maybe. But Dan does have one of the 3 most conservative voting records in the state Senate. Those are the 2 contenders here. Those people have pledged delegates. Those people, I don't know what Russo's raised, but DiBasella's far outraised.
And that's another thing. It's about money.
How much has DiBasella raised?
You would know that better than I do.
I don't know off the top of my head. I didn't look up his stuff.
Yeah, I mean, he's easily in the 6 figures, though, easily. Okay. But I mean, Rob Merkel is not a serious candidate, and if he's got a new baby at home, he should stop wasting his time and ours, and really not dabble in this stuff. I mean,
have you ever? Well, you have run for local office locally.
Sure.
All right, but I mean, when you ran your first time, didn't people say, "Well, why are you running? You know, why you consider yourself a serious candidate?" I mean, it seems to be that this is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people, and that anyone can throw their hat in the ring.
First of all, Marty,
this isn't some sort of like
Marty, I was elected to the Board of
monarchy.
I was elected to the Board of Education. Anyone that's seeking a seat on that is insane to begin with.
Okay, well, all right, I don't disagree with that, but all right.
But I mean, Rob Merkel is not a serious candidate.
I know you said that like 5 times.
Well, then why do you give him credibility by having him call up the show?
I give him credibility because he's thrown his hat in the ring. He's gone to fundraisers. He's met people. I walked with him out on the Halloween walk in Ridgefield. He was very well received there. He's very well received by the Ridgefield Republican Town Committee. I think he's...
Who was listed as a supporter of Mr. DiBasella in a press release today.
Well, that's fine. I mean, you know, but I think you sound a little...
Stop wasting your time and his.
I don't know what you're talking about, wasting your time. I think he has a voice. I think he has a right to say what's, he's running for and what his positions are. So, yeah, okay. All right, hold on. Caller, you're on the air.
Marty, this is Sam Calenturi calling. How are you?
Sam, thank you so much for calling in. We really appreciate it. Sorry for the technical difficulties we've been having.
Senator, how are you?
It's a pleasure to be on.
Okay, a good friend of yours, Matt Grimes, is on, and he's essentially predicting the race for Congress right now and saying that different candidates don't have a right to run, like Rob Merkel. You like Rob Merkel, don't you?
Sure I do.
Yeah, see, he was in a debate.
Yeah, but he's also very good friends with Dan DiBasella and Rob Russo, aren't you, Sam?
Did you hear that, Sam?
The fact that people may be friendly with each other, I don't think that should affect whether they run or not. If people believe they can make a difference and want to participate in the process, they ought to have a right to do that.
I couldn't agree with you more.
I actually want to thank Sam, though. Can I thank Sam?
Absolutely.
I think.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time hearing him.
Go right ahead. No, go ahead.
No, Sam, I really want to thank you for stepping into the 5th District race. Mr. Murphy has fallen far out of sync with the views of the voters in that district. He has moved far left when it's a much more central district, and I think that we needed somebody to step up to the plate and call him out and make him famous. And I think that you've done that, and you came right in the nick of time.
Well, I really appreciate it. And, you know, for me, it's always been about serving where I think I can make the biggest difference. And when I took a step back and looked at everything, I realized that Chris Murphy is just like Chris Dodd, and the only real difference between the two of them is that Chris Murphy is younger and has a different last name. But when you look at their policies, when you look at the arrogance of power and how it's affected Murphy, it's just like Chris Dodd all over again. And he's pushing policies that are really a lot more about making Nancy Pelosi happy than it is anything that's representative of what the people of the 5th District want. And he's pushing things that are bad for Connecticut, bad for the 5th, and we need to change that, and we're going to be able to do that next November. We're going to get rid of Chris Dodd, we're going to get rid of Chris Murphy, we're going to get rid of Jim Himes, and we're going to be able to bring some sound, fiscally conservative representation back to the people of Connecticut.
All right, now walk me through, if you would, the thought process between initially running for the Senate seat and then making the switch to the 5th Congressional District. How did that come about?
Well, you know, I decided to run because I decided to run for the Senate because I was convinced that we needed to get rid of Chris Dodd. This was the year to do it, and I felt that I would be a strong candidate to do that. And over the last 8 months, I spent a lot of time getting to know the other Republican candidates in the race. And I came to the conclusion, personally, that there were several other Republican candidates in the race who can beat Chris Dodd, and I believe are going to beat Chris Dodd in November. But at the same time, people have been coming to me for months saying, Sam, we wish you'd run in the 5th Congressional District. There are so many good candidates in the Senate race, but you would be the best candidate we could possibly field in the 5th. Would you really consider it, Sam? Because we could then not only beat Chris Dodd, we could beat Chris Murphy. And as I said a few minutes ago, when I took a step back and I looked at Murphy's voting record, I realized he's every bit as bad as Chris Dodd. And if I could add value by helping the team beat Chris Murphy, then I think Connecticut's better off because we get a new United States Senator and we get a new 5th District Congressman, and I get to fight for all of the same issues in Washington that I wanted to fight for in the Senate. Government reform, things like term limits, banning earmarks, campaign finance reform so that campaign chairs or committee chairs and ranking members can't raise money from the industries that they regulate, which is part of what corrupted Chris Dodd and corrupt so many other people. Real fiscal reform so that we can get some spending controls in place. I can fight for all of those issues in the House just like I would in the Senate. And I believed that ultimately I could add the greatest value by running in the 5th and still be true to my convictions, and that's why I decided to make that move.
How has that been received by your constituents? It would seem like people have been, had their heart and soul in this Senate race. Is it an easy switch for them to go to the 5th Congressional District then?
I have to tell you, there's been so much excitement because there had been so many people asking me to move for several months now, and I can't begin to express how much enthusiasm I've been encountering everywhere over the last few weeks when Chairman Healy made the unusual move of saying publicly that he thought I ought to move into the 5th District race. He was giving voice to what a lot of people had been saying to me for a long time, and the outpouring of support has been tremendous. And, I think people want to see change not just in the Senate but in the House, and I think they're very excited about my ability to bring it in the 5th District. And because of my ability to compete with Chris Murphy in areas that have traditionally been his strongholds, Waterbury, which is my hometown, Wolcott, Cheshire, the state Senate district that I represent is what Murphy had represented. People understand that I'm in the best position to take him on because I go right at his base of support. And by being able to come out of Waterbury with a win, it helps a Republican tremendously to be able to win that seat. And so there's a lot of excitement out there. And people know that I'm going to fight for all the things that I've been pushing for the last 8 months in the Senate race in the House. And they're excited that I'm going to have a chance to do it by beating Chris Murphy.
All right, we're joined here by Al Robinson. He's the founder and editor of a very influential blog called Hat City Blog, and also your friend Matt Grimes. But Al has a question.
Sure.
Real quick, you know, you talk about the Republicans that are running for Senate, and there's a lot of great candidates. Well, there were a lot of candidates in the Senate race before you announced. And that being said, why didn't you just go for the 5th Congressional District as opposed to running for Senate in the first place?
Well, at the time I announced for the Senate, the only two people being mentioned were Rob Simmons and me. And I really believed that I could be a very strong alternative to Congressman Simmons and for someone that Republicans should consider in the race, because I felt strongly that I could be a very strong matchup to Senator Dodd. And I also felt that it was absolutely critical, given Senator Dodd's stature in the Senate, that we run our strongest possible candidates against him. And that was really mission one for me, because if we didn't get rid of Chris Dodd now, we were never going to get rid of him. And as I said, I really felt that I could be a strong candidate in that race and bring a real message at the right time that people would receive it well. And that's been happening. But along the way, I got to know Rob Simmons better, and then Tom Foley and Linda McMahon, and I came to realize that and Peter Schiff, that any one of these people would be very competitive with Senator Dodd, which is why when I felt comfortable that we had candidates in the race who could beat Dodd and who I believe will beat Dodd, it made it easier for me to consider moving to the 5th District race, because I felt so strongly that I didn't want to abandon the Senate race if I didn't think that someone else could win it.
Now, there's been a few rumblings about how the whole thing went down, and I know one of the other candidates who are running, who's going for the nomination, Justin Brenner, I think his name is? Bernier. Mm-hmm. It's been a little outspoken about you entering the race, or maybe not you entering the race, but the way the whole thing went about with Healy reaching out to you and urging you to run. Why do you feel you're a better candidate as opposed to the other nominees that are running? I think Justin is running. I think other people like Dan Carter is running. Bill Evans is running as well, going for the nomination. Why do you feel you're better than those particular people?
Well, first of all, I think they're all very good. As I get to know them, and some of them I've known Kai Westby before, and they're all very good candidates. And I think Justin has done a very good and credible job. But I think I'm the only candidate in the 5th District race who's actually had to win an election before. And I've been able to win it as a Republican in a heavily Democratic district. I'm also able to do something that most Republicans can't do, which is to win a major city in the 5th Congressional District. And traditionally what happens is Republicans get beat so badly in Waterbury, Meriden, and New Britain that they can't make up for it in the rest of the towns in the 5th District.
Right.
And so by being able to come out of Waterbury, where I've been able to prove my ability to win with a win, and my ability to cut right into Murphy's base, because I've been able to prove my ability to win Cheshire, win Wolcott, win Waterbury. I'm the only one in the race who has a proven record of being able to win, where a Republican needs to be able to win in order to win this race. But beyond that, I actually have a proven record of doing something. You know, I stood up to political pressure, and I was the only person 2 years ago in the Senate to vote against the state budget, because I felt that it was going to result in huge deficits. It violated the state spending cap, and I thought that was going to be wrong for Connecticut. And so when I talk about we need someone who's willing to stand up to political pressure, regardless of where it comes from, in favor of real fiscal conservative principles, I don't just say it, I've done it. When I talk about the fact that I've been able to walk away from power, I've done it when I became the acting mayor of Waterbury, and people said, Sam, now you've got to run in your own right. I said no to power, not because I didn't want to do the job, but because I was convinced that by not running for re-election, that I was going to be in the best position to just do the job. And when I took over the mayor's office in Waterbury, it was at a time of real crisis in that city's history. So I've been proven in the fires of very difficult times as being someone who's been a proven reformer, who's been willing and able to stand up and take the heat to make tough decisions, and I've been a staunch fiscal conservative. I'm the only one in the race who has a proven record of doing that. And so when you combine that proven record on the issues with my proven record of being able to win tough races in a heavily Democratic area, that's what I believe makes me the strongest candidate.
And ultimately,
it's up to the delegates. I'm going to go out there. I'm just like every other candidate in this race. I'm going to go make the case to the best of my ability, and it's going to be for them to decide which one of us they believe should be the nominee.
For those who don't know, and we broadcast to a pretty large section of the 5th District, you had a sort of self-imposed term limit when you became the mayor of Waterbury, right?
That's right. I took over. I was the president of the Board of Aldermen, and I was going in for knee surgery, and just as I was going in, I learned that Phil Giordano, who was the mayor at the time, had just gotten arrested, and that I was automatically the mayor of Waterbury, and I woke up from that knee surgery, the mayor of Waterbury, at a time when the city was going through another ethics crisis and a major financial crisis. And when I took over as acting mayor of Waterbury, people asked me to run, and I said I wasn't going to run because I wanted to focus on just doing the job. And because of that decision, we got more done during the time that I was the acting mayor than some of my predecessors had done in an entire 2-year term.
We have Matt Grimes with us, too, and he has a question.
Sure.
Hi, Sam. As you know, I was one of the ones, one of the Republicans in the district who had urged you to switch races for a while back, and I'm glad you did. I guess what, in my area, the Danbury area, and in the northwest corner, which is represented by your colleague, Senator Rohrabaugh, we felt like for the last 4 years, nobody's paying attention to us in Washington. Nancy was able to get around the district a lot, provide very good constituent service. What are you going to say to Danbury and to the northwest corner, two very important parts of the district, that you're going to do differently with constituent service than Chris Murphy does?
Well, first of all, I mean, I'm going to do what I've done every time I've been involved in government, which is to stay as close to the people as I represent as possible. And I have a proven record of doing that in the 4 towns that I represent right now in the state Senate. And my focus is on doing the job for the people that I represent. I make it my point to get to everything that I can in every corner of the district that I represent. And granted, I'm going to have 10 times more towns than I have now. But I've been able to do that consistently in the time that I've been in government service. And I think I have a record that shows that I've always done what I said I was going to do. I say what I mean what I say, and I follow through. And one of the reasons why I've gotten the support of people like Senator Rohrabaugh, and I've got the support of Senator McLaughlin in Danbury and Representative Gigler in Danbury, is because they've known me over the years to be exactly that kind of a person. And Senator Rohrabaugh loves his area so much, like Senator McLaughlin and Jan Gigler does in Danbury, that they wouldn't be supporting someone that they didn't believe had the best interests of their areas at heart. And they know that I do. And so that's why I'm so happy to have their support. And I think their endorsement and their testimonies on my behalf, I hope, will show people that someone who really will serve them well.
We'll see you in Brookfield real soon, Sam.
I'm looking forward to it.
Last question. Have you officially thrown your support behind any of the other candidates? Rob Simmons, Linda McMahon, Peter Schiff?
And I don't expect to do that for a while.
All right. Well, listen, I really appreciate you taking the time. Sorry for the technical difficulties. And we look forward to having you in the studio as well.
I'm looking forward to it, too. Guys, thank you for what you do, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to be on tonight.
Great. Thanks a lot. Good luck.
Thank you very much. Good night, guys.
Well, there you have it.
He gave us a real good break by doing this.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, I'm pretty keen on that. I mean, it does sort of beg the questions because it is a bit of musical chairs here. You have Foley, who's running, Tom Foley, not that Tom Foley, but the guy from Greenwich who was the ambassador to Ireland, correct, I believe, yeah. And he was running for the Senate. Then Governor Rell decides she's not going to run, so Tom Foley jumps to the governor's race. Then you have Sam Caligiuri, who's running for the Senate as well, but all of a sudden he thinks he wants to jump to the 5th District. Why do you think he did that?
Well, I think that he was urged to by a lot. Speaking for the Republican town committees in the 5th District, they were urging a front-runner to step forward. They know that Murphy's vulnerable. They know that they want, I mean, he's moved very left in the second term, much more than he did in the first term.
Right.
And they were looking for a front-runner. They were looking for a Mark Boughton or a Tim Stewart or a Sam Caligiuri or even a Mike McLaughlin to come forward and do that. And Sam There was always expectations in Republican circles that this might happen. I'm glad it did, and I think that he fills a void for a lot of people. And he's right. There are certain people that have been out of the gate more so than he has.
Well, I mean, doesn't it beg the question, though, if now you have this passion to run for the 5th Congressional District, why didn't you do that to begin with?
Exactly.
I think you're
absolutely right.
I think it's a very good question.
It's a perfect question. I mean, you should have ran for it in the first place. This musical chair stuff there's a simple reason why this is happening. The convention's coming up in a few months. It's not that far away, and you have to get your ducks in order. This is Chris Healy doing his masterful work from behind the scenes, telling you get over here, you get over there.
And it's happening on both sides.
You have to do this. You know, this is not rocket science here.
Okay, so let's get in the head of Chris Healy here. I happen to know for sure he's really sweating all this. Like, you know, is there going to be a all-out civil war within the Republican Party for the nomination to run against Dodd? Where's that heading? By pulling Sam Callegeri out of that race, is he what? Getting more support for in this situation, Rob Simmons or Linda McMahon?
Rob Simmons, and I'll explain why. I mean,
Please
Rob picked up a lot of the town committees that had been supporting Sam when Sam dropped out. And as Al was saying, with the town committees, the cities and town committees, it's all about delegates. With those
it's all about delegates.
Come delegates. I mean, Rob Simmons, I would say, basically has the convention won by now. It's just by how much. It's how much Linda McMahon could get or Peter Schiff could get at the convention to force a primary. And if you don't, by the way, if you don't get 15% of the primary, one thing that Mr. Merkel's probably not even aware of is that you don't need 15% at the convention.
You seem to be obsessing on Merkel a little bit. If he's such a non-candidate, what's the obsession?
He's a lightweight. But
okay,
anyway.
Well, you mentioned him like 5 times. I mean, you know.
No, I was explaining a rule that you probably don't even know. That Al knows,
I'm a little vague on a lot of these
Al knows,
rules.
though, is that if you don't get 15% at the convention, you can go out and petition.
Joe
and you can
Lieberman.
get your spot on the ballot. You don't, not that way. You can petition for a primary now.
Oh, you can. Oh, yeah. You
You're not controlled by the convention.
Right.
You don't have to get 15%. You can go out and get, I believe it's 1% or 2% of the party. I'm sorry, it's 5% in your district. So if you wanted to run in John Frye's district for Republican primary, you get 5% of the Republicans in John Frye's district. You're on the primary ballot.
And another thing here this is another thing. You only have so many Republicans. The Republican pool of candidates is historically not been that big. So you have all these people going for the Senate race. You didn't have anybody for the 5th at that time. You still don't really have anybody for the 4th, in my opinion. But you had to move these people around because Justin Brenner, Kai Westby, those are not big ID names to go up against somebody like Chris Murphy.
Okay,
so you have to move these people around because, again, you only had a few months before the convention. You got to get those delegates.
Okay, so in a perfect world from the Republican point of view, at the end of the day, we've got Rob Simmons beating Dodd for the Senate race. We have Sam Callegeri beating Chris Murphy in the 5th Congressional District, and we have who? Mike Fedeli, Tom Foley, whomever, holding on to the governor's bench. Is that what
we've talked about?
The governor is wide open.
Why don't I go through the Democratic candidates for governor? I went through the Republicans earlier.
Okay.
I mean, you've got some big names in there. You've got
Hold on one second. Caller, you're on the air. Caller, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, what's your question?
Well, I just had a question about the Republican Senate primaries.
Yes.
There's a lot of rumors going around that Linda McMahon's got so much money that she's going to end up with it, but...
Have you received her real glossy color things in your mailbox?
Yes. I know she's got a personal fortune in the millions, but she's a real rhino, and if, you know, you can go on OpenSecrets.org and see she's donated over $34,000 to the Democrats and to Rahm Emanuel, and I wonder how many people know that. And, you know, Tom Foley went over, you know, he's switched races now. Schiff is kind of a, and he admits he's kind of a one-trick pony with the finance, you know, in the finance industry. And I just really, do you think it's too early to make any kind of call?
Well, I mean, not to pick your brain, but you seem to be in favor of Rob Simmons. You feel like he's the most worthy candidate?
Well, Rob Simmons I think he's got baggage because he's part of the old guard, and people that I've talked to still want change. The advantage I think Rob Simmons has is because he's been there. He knows how to play the games. He knows how to do the compromises. He understands you have to give to get.
Right.
But again, people are worried about putting a rhino in there.
Wow.
And I will get off the air and let someone else talk and listen again.
Well, listen, I really appreciate you calling in. I appreciate your perspective. How about that? Linda McMahon, what did you say? She's like buying it kind of to put on her trophy shelf?
I said that the Senate seat's not for sale, and I think that people realize that. I actually don't think, I mean, she's spent a lot of money so far. I haven't seen any traction from her. She has not gained in the polls. She's not picked up RTCs. She's picked up a few high-profile endorsements one way or the other. But, I mean, I just don't see, I mean, in the primary, I don't see, I mean, the delegates are lining up behind one candidate. We know who the candidate of the Republican establishment is for the Senate.
Right.
He's going to win the convention. It's by how much? I mean, he might win a little less than people are saying he's going to. I think Peter Schiff, one thing about Peter Schiff that is interesting, that's more interesting than most minor candidates, is Ron Paul did have a cadre of folks out there in the Republican primaries in 2008, and Peter Schiff has kind of jumped on that. I believe Ron Paul got, what, 8 or 9% of the vote in the Republican primary in 2008?
In Connecticut?
Yes.
Wow.
And so I think that there's that cadre of people out there. Those people will vote in the primary.
Yeah.
And let me tell you something. You have to take somebody seriously when they have, like, they pledged to spend $30 to $50 million.
That's what Peter Schiff?
That's Linda McMahon.
Yeah.
And
Linda McMahon.
That's a lot of money. And I don't care who you are. You got to take that seriously.
Today, if you want to spend an interesting half hour, put in Peter Schiff on YouTube and see some of his presentations on some of these, financial news networks and things like that, where he called the collapse of the subprime mortgages and so forth. He's done a lot of other things.
What he hasn't done is vote. He hasn't voted in a while.
I think
has he talked to a reporter in Connecticut yet? I'm still waiting.
No, I mean, so if we're going to handicap this, we can. You're saying we can write off Peter Schiff is your call.
No, I'm saying again, when people have a lot of money to spend, I think it's going to be Rob Simmons' problem. You got Linda McMahon, who you can't get out. All right, she's pledging to spend $30 to $50 million. Yeah. That's a lot of money. You have to combat that. You have to take that seriously. Peter Schiff, millionaire, willing to spend cash.
Has he spent any yet?
Here's right.
He can ask for a money bomb, and he'll do a Ron Paul money bomb, and he'll make that money quickly. You have to take that seriously, because Rob Simmons' kids can't sit back there and just, like, do nothing.
Here's where I
think spend money.
Here's where I think Schiff has some credibility. Rob Simmons is going to win the convention, as I said. I mean, if he wins with 80% of the delegates, it's a lot different than if he wins with 60% of the delegates.
Right.
Then he really douses McMahon, and her money can only go so far. But if she were to get let's say she were to get a third of the vote in the primary, and Simmons is running in the high 40s or the low 50s or something. If Peter Schiff is pulling 10 to 15% of the vote, he could swing the primary almost, in a way. That's one thing about him. But he's absolutely right. I mean, he could do a Ron Paul money bomb at any day of the week. I do still think, even though with the money that McMahon's spending, that Simmons is the candidate to beat. He's doing what he has to do when you have a candidate with a lot of money. And he seems to be maneuvering very well. He's kept his lead in the polls. He's the only one leading Dodd by a credible margin. Linda McMahon is running even with Dodd, and I think Republican voters are going to take notice of that in the primary. Dodd will probably beat her in an election regardless, because if she gets into a debate, I don't think she can hold a candle to either Dodd's or Simmons' knowledge of foreign policy.
And let me
just take the other side of that, just for discussion purposes, and I'll put my cards. I like Rob Simmons. He's appeared on the show a number of times. I like him quite a bit, actually, and I think he's probably the best bet to unseat Dodd. But let me take the other side of it, just like that caller that just called in. My sense is that out there in the community, there's a very much anti-Washington vote. People are upset. The callers talked about rhinos. We don't want to elect a rhino. Does Simmons, is it a negative for him that he spent so much time in Washington, and some of these votes that are coming back, will that come back to haunt him, and does that make him a flawed candidate in a year where it's throw the bums out?
As Al Robinson has said on the show many times, and Paul Trippi said it, I've said it, when you've been in the Congress or you've been in the legislature, you've got votes that anybody can drive a truck through. You've got however many hundred votes you take a year, and anybody can spin those any which way they want to. At the end of the day, it's going to come down to who's going to make a better senator. I want to point out one thing about a money race and such. Who redefined? If I name one politician in the last 10 years, forget about presidency for a minute, who redefined how money is spent on a statewide campaign, who would that candidate be? Democrat or Republican?
I would say it would be the Democratic governor of New Jersey.
Thank you. John Corzine. Let me tell you something.
Al, I get some of these right, but go ahead.
John Corzine redefined how money's spent on local elections. And what was interesting was when he got elected to the Senate in 2000, he had a 20-point lead over Bob Franks for a long time. When he started debating Franks, and Franks showed that he was more knowledgeable of policy and more knowledgeable of the economy and such, and he came within 2 points despite being outspent about 14-1. So I think if McMahon gets into these debates with either Simmons or Dodd, people are going to realize that she's not as experienced as they are, that she's not would not go down to Washington, which is much clout as one of them. And I think that that's where it's going to hurt her.
She's got really nice printed material.
Sure she does.
It opens up.
So did you in 2001 when you ran for first selectman of Richfield.
2003.
2003.
I had some great printed material.
You did.
It was really good. I had my children in there.
And your opponent's now running for governor.
And my opponent's running for governor. Yeah, I think we have that released. Rudy Marconi has thrown his hat in the ring for governor.
Well, let's talk about the Democratic candidates for governor. Sure. That's a wide open field and everything. You've got Ned Lamont, who you know has credibility in the Democratic electorate. There's a lot of people that supported Mr. Lamont for the Senate in 2006 that are upset that he didn't get it, and will probably go through hurricanes to vote for him again. He came out of nowhere and took down an 18-year senator.
All those Republicans crossed over and voted for Lieberman.
Well, that too.
That's got to be unnerving for Democrats. Al, your thoughts?
Hey, you got not only that, you have a lot of stick with Joe Democrats who are just like, oh my God. I don't think we'll see much more Joe Lieberman in 2012. But you know, Ned Lamont, credible, IDs high. Got the cash to do it. It'll be interesting to see how he'll handle the whole campaign finance thing.
He's pulled the votes in the Democrat primary before.
Yeah, he knows how to get this thing done. But there's a lot of candidates. I'll let Matt keep going.
Susan Beisowitz, longtime Secretary of State. Although I will point out the Secretary of State's job, which is a big, nice plum job and controls a lot of state jobs. There's no candidates for that, Democrat or Republican right now.
Jerry Garcia is announced a little while back.
He's got a statewide office campaign, but he hasn't specified yet. Nobody's specified Secretary of State, and there's speculation that Ms. Beisowitz come to convention may be the nominee.
There is some unhappiness with Ms. Beisowitz in the form of using that Secretary of State job as a platform to run. I know she's done this tour of
16 years. She's been the Secretary of State.
All right, but she's pretty high profile in that.
If she decides to run for Secretary of State, she's got it.
No, not Secretary of State. We're talking about governor.
I'm just saying, if she opts to drop out as governor, she can be Secretary of State. Who you got is going to beat her? Nobody.
Let me tell you,
you forget it. She can do what she wants.
So you've got Ned Lamont, you've got Susan Beisowitz, and you've got Dan Malloy, who's about to step down as mayor of Stamford on Monday.
Yep.
Long-time record. He revitalized the downtown of Stamford, building the mall and getting it all cleaned up and such, and the train station and everything. And of course, he got 49% of the vote in the Democrat primary 4 years ago for governor. That would be the A tier, I would say. Lamont.
Now, but didn't now when he stepped down, but he wasn't able to hand off the mayorship of Stamford to a Democrat, right? Didn't the Republican win?
Yeah, which happens often. I mean, Chris Murphy handed his state Senate seat off to Sam Caligiuri. I mean, when there's an open seat, all bets are off.
It was just Reagan that was able to hand off the vice presidency to George.
Yeah, but he handed off the governorship of California to Jerry Brown.
Also,
who's going to run for governor again in 2000?
Gene Eriquist stepped down after many years in Danbury. Mark Boughton picked up, although I think he won by 146 votes. But you know, those things happen.
So Ned Lamont, Susan Beisowitz, and Dan
Malloy. That's your tier A.
Those are okay.
And that's not. I'm not disparaging Rudy Marconi or Gary LeBeau, the state senator from East Hartford, both of whom are announced candidates as well. Am I missing anybody? I think I've got all of them.
Jim
Amon, former House Speaker.
By the way, this is your cheat sheet for, I don't want people to think I actually
What they can do, though, they're in a very good position, especially with the gubernatorial seat open, and that's that they're from different regions of the state. Mr. Marconi from northern Fairfield County, Jim Amon from Milford, a very strong blue-collar union area in Milford, in that area, and Gary LeBeau from East Hartford, which is the industrial town suburbs up outside of Hartford. They could come into the convention with Gary probably with all the votes from the delegates from the towns he represents in the state Senate, Jim Amon with a lot of the Milford area that he represented in the House, and Rudy with something like Ridgefield and Reading and Bethel and that kind of thing, that they come in with a chunk of delegates. Well, they're plumb. Those delegates are plumb to go to one of these top-tier candidates and say, I've got this chunk of delegates. You need to get 50%. Put me on the ticket for lieutenant governor. Put me up for Secretary of State. Do this. That's what Joe Gannon did when he was mayor of Bridgeport. He controlled all the Bridgeport delegation. John Larson didn't come in with 15%, 50%. Bill Curry didn't. He was there with that chunk of delegates basically saying, if I'm the candidate for lieutenant governor, I'm releasing my delegates to you. You're the nominee for governor. And that's what any of these Class B candidates or Tier B candidates, I would say, could do. And they're actually probably holding more clout than the Tier A candidates when it comes into a convention like that. And you've got to get over the threshold.
That's why, again, I can't stress this enough. It's about those delegates. That's why I brought it up a few times and before with these other candidates. You got to find out who your delegates are right now, because the convention's right around the corner.
And how committed they are.
And how committed they are, because it's going to be inside baseball to the nth degree in those conventions.
Yeah, it's going to be in both those conventions with an open governor's seat.
Yeah.
It's the same convention, by the way. I will say that. Like, it's the same convention. The same convention that decides the gubernatorial nominee will decide the Senate nominee.
You're talking about
it's a state convention.
Okay, but one's on the Democratic side and one's on the Republican side?
They're going to decide both. What I'm saying is the same party convention that will decide the governors will decide the Senate seats.
All right. Wrapping up here, I want hard and fast. We're going to roll tape on this. We're going to hold you to it. Who will be the Republican nominee for governor and Senate? Go.
Mike Fedeli and Rob Simmons out of the convention.
Okay, but you're hedging there a little bit. Is that who's going to be who is going to be on the ballot in November?
I'm not going to predict that yet. Mike Fedeli and Rob Simmons out of the convention. For the Democrats, Ned Lamont and Chris Dodd.
Ned Lamont. And you
I think it's too early for the Republicans for the governor, because Jody just stepped down. You might see a lot of other Republicans between now and, let's say, 24 hours from now announcing. So I can't do anything for that governor thing. Rob Simmons probably, but it's going to be a primary fight. And again, I think it's going to be a bloodbath with Linda McMahon.
You say so.
Convention Simmons. Democrats for governor, again, it's too hard right now. I just don't know. Maybe Lamont. Senate, Chris Dodd all the way. I think it's going to be very interesting to see any Republican go up against Chris Dodd. I'd like to see those debates.
Does Senator Dodd hold on to his seat?
I think he might. I think it's a good chance. But again, Jim Himes, absolutely.
Absolutely. Jim Himes is going to win.
I think it's...
And Chris Murphy.
Chris Dodd will be out of the Senate by this time next year.
You see how many votes that... You see the margin of victory that Chris Murphy had against Cappiello? And I think Cappiello has a little more higher name ID than Caligiuri does, and I think, well, that's just me.
Your prediction? Dodd, up, down?
He will be out of office this time next year.
It's going to be U.S. Senator Rob Simmons.
Yes.
Okay, he's right.
Yes.
Dodd, dump Dodd, Dodd's gone. The Republicans will hold on to the governor's mansion with Mike Fedeli, and our new congressman from the 5th Congressional District will be Sam Caligiuri. And in the 4th,
Dan DiBasella.
Merkel.
Thanks for joining us on Ideas and Work and Beyond. Next week, we may have this guy. We're not sure what we're going to do next week, but it's a long way off. We have a lot of time to plan. Thanks for calling. Thanks for being with us, and we'll see you next week on Ideas at Work and Beyond. Merry Christmas. Happy
Kwanzaa.
Happy
Hanukkah.